They mocked her aim, then a SEAL sniper handed her his rifle, and she left them stunned. The laughter started before she even touched the trigger. "Drop the toy." The words cut across the outdoor range, followed by a few scattered chuckles. It was supposed to be a friendly community shooting day, civilians invited to test their aim under supervision from former military instructors. Targets were set at moderate distances. Nothing extreme. Just skill, patience, and steady hands. And then there was her. She stood at the firing line holding a small caliber rifle, lightweight, compact, almost delicate compared to the heavy tactical platforms resting on the tables nearby. To them, it looked like a beginner's gun. The toy. A few men further down the line shook their heads. "She won't hit past 100 yards with that thing. Probably just here for the pictures." She heard every word, but her posture didn't change. Feet planted evenly. Shoulders relaxed. Breathing steady. The steel target downrange shimmered under the afternoon sun. 200 yards. Not impossible, but not easy with a rifle like hers. A retired instructor stood behind the group, arms crossed. Among the observers that day was a former Navy SEAL sniper, quiet, watchful, saying nothing. He leaned casually against the fence, eyes scanning technique rather than listening to jokes. She adjusted her stance. Focused through her optic. Exhaled slowly. The first shot cracked through the air. A faint metallic ping answered back from downrange. Dead center. The laughter dipped slightly. "Lucky shot," someone muttered. She chambered another round. Breathe in. Half out. Trigger press. Another ping. Same spot. The tone of the range shifted. This wasn't random. This was grouping. 5 shots later, the steel plate bore a tight cluster no larger than a fist. The mockery quieted into curiosity. But pride doesn't disappear easily. One of the louder voices stepped forward, holding a large precision rifle with a thick barrel and long bipod. "If you're so good," he said with a grin, "try a real rifle." A few nods followed. The former SEAL sniper finally pushed off the fence and walked toward the line. He hadn't spoken all afternoon. Until now. "Let her shoot," he said calmly. The group parted slightly. He carried his own rifle, heavier, longer, far more powerful than anything on the civilian tables. This wasn't a toy. This was a professional-grade precision weapon. He stopped in front of her and studied her posture, her breathing, the way she handled recoil. No ego in her stance. No tension. Just control. Without a word, he extended his rifle toward her. The crowd murmured. Some smirked again. This would be different. This rifle kicked harder. Reached farther. Punished mistakes. And as she reached out to take it, the entire range leaned in. Because what happened next would change the tone of the day completely. The rifle felt heavier the moment it settled into her hands. Not just in weight. In expectation. The former Navy SEAL sniper stepped slightly behind her, watching closely but saying nothing. His rifle wasn't flashy. It was worn in the way tools become when they've been trusted in serious places. Long barrel. Suppressor. Precision optic dialed for distance. This wasn't built for casual range days. It was built for accountability. The men who had laughed earlier folded their arms again, confidence slowly returning. Different story now, one of them muttered. Let's see her control that recoil. Downrange, the steel target at 200 yards suddenly seemed too close for a rifle like this. The SEAL spoke quietly. Push it to 500. A ripple of surprise moved across the line. 500 yards wasn't impossible. But it exposed flaws instantly. Wind drift mattered. Trigger discipline mattered more. The target was adjusted. Smaller plate. Farther out. Heat shimmer rising from the ground. She knelt behind the rifle and settled into prone position. The bipod legs dug into the gravel. She adjusted the stock carefully, aligning her shoulder with the recoil path. The SEAL observed her mechanics, the way she aligned her spine, the way her cheek met the stock, the way her breathing slowed without effort. No shaking. No overcorrection. Just quiet familiarity. Do you know how to dial elevation? One of the men asked, half smiling. She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced at the turret, turned it with controlled clicks, then asked softly, What's the wind reading? The seal gave her a faint look, not impressed, not surprised. Quarter value. 2 miles per hour from the left. She adjusted slightly. The range went silent again. At 500 yards, misses are obvious. Embarrassing even. She inhaled. Exhaled halfway. The trigger broke clean. The rifle cracked, louder, deeper than her smaller one. Recoil drove back, but her body absorbed it smoothly. Everyone waited. At that distance, the impact delay stretched longer. A sharp metallic clang rang out from downrange. The plate swung visibly. Center hit. A few eyebrows rose. Someone shifted uncomfortably. She probably got lucky with the wind, another voice tried. She cycled the bolt calmly. Second shot. Fuzz. Clang. Third shot. Fuzz. Clang. 3 consecutive hits. At 500 yards. The tone of the range shifted again, this time not into curiosity, but into respect. The seal stepped closer now. Not to correct her, but to study her. You've shot distance before, he said quietly. She nodded once. The group had gone silent. The same man who had called her rifle a toy earlier now stared at the steel through binoculars, confirming what he didn't want to believe. Tight grouping. Consistent placement. The seal looked downrange thoughtfully. Then he said something that made the entire line tense. Set it to 800. A murmur spread instantly. 800 yards was no joke. Wind becomes a factor. Bullet drop grows dramatic. Mistakes grow expensive. And this time, everyone was watching without laughter. Because what had started as mockery was becoming something very different. The air felt different now. Heavier. 800 yards isn't just a number. It's a test. The steel plate downrange looked impossibly small, barely visible through the naked eye. Heat waves distorted its outline. At that distance, even experienced shooters hesitate. Wind doesn't whisper at 800 yards. It decides. The former Navy SEAL sniper lay beside her now, not interfering, just observing. His eyes tracked the grass, the mirage through his optic, the subtle shifts in airflow. The crowd behind them had grown completely quiet. No jokes. No smirks. Just waiting. She adjusted the bipod again, settling deeper into the prone position. The rifle's weight no longer looked intimidating in her hands. It looked natural. Wind's picking up, someone whispered behind them. The SEAL spoke calmly. 3 miles per hour now. Still left to right. She nodded once. No overthinking. No theatrics. She dialed elevation carefully. Then windage. Every click deliberate. Controlled. Through the scope, the target shimmered like a mirage floating in heat. She slowed her breathing. Inhale. Exhale halfway. The trigger broke. The rifle thundered. Recoil rolled back into her shoulder, absorbed smoothly again. At 800 yards, time stretches. The bullet travels. Gravity pulls. Wind nudges. Everyone leaned forward instinctively. A delayed, faint but undeniable metallic clang echoed across the range. The plate moved. Not wildly. Just enough. A collective exhale swept through the observers. Some disbelief. Some admiration. One man lowered his binoculars slowly, shaking his head. She didn't react. Didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. She simply cycled the bolt. Long pause. Clang. Second hit. The tension shifted into something undeniable now. Respect. She adjusted slightly, minor wind correction. Third shot. The longest pause yet. Clang. 3 consecutive hits at 800 yards. The range wasn't silent anymore. It was stunned. The same voices that had laughed earlier now stood motionless. The former SEAL sniper finally spoke loud enough for others to hear. That's discipline. Not praise. Not hype. Just a statement. He studied her posture one last time. You didn't fight the rifle, he added. You worked with it. She carefully placed the rifle back on its bipod and removed her eye from the scope. Only then did she glance toward the group. Not with pride. Not with revenge. But with calm. The man who had said, "Drop the toy," earlier avoided her eyes. Because the lesson wasn't about caliber, or barrel length, or who looked the part. It was about control. And now the seal did something unexpected. He stood, looked downrange again, and said quietly, "Let's stretch it to 1,000. 1,000 yards. Where mistakes aren't small. They're obvious." And the entire day was about to become unforgettable. The target had been moved. 1,000 yards. Over half a mile. The steel plate looked impossibly small, shimmering through heat mirages and distance haze. Every shooter in line felt the weight of that number. Every casual observer sensed the tension in the air. The former Navy SEAL sniper stepped back, letting her take full control. "This is where skill becomes legend," he said quietly. "Take your time." She knelt behind the rifle, adjusting the bipod with deliberate precision. Her posture was flawless. Her breathing was calm. Her focus absolute. Every movement mattered. Every tiny correction could mean the difference between hitting steel and missing by feet. The wind shifted subtly across the range. Grass bent. Dust danced. Heat waves wavered. She calculated mentally, minor adjustments in elevation, slight windage corrections. The range went silent. Even the men who had mocked her earlier couldn't tear their eyes away. She exhaled slowly. Finger eased onto the trigger. The first shot thundered. Recoil rolled back into her shoulder, controlled. Second stretched. A faint metallic clang answered from the distance. Hit. Dead center. The line of observers couldn't believe it. The second shot followed immediately. Another clang. Tight grouping. Perfect. Precise. Controlled. 3 shots. 3 hits. At 1,000 yards. The laughter, the mockery, the smug confidence, it had all vanished. The SEAL sniper stepped forward and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just handle the rifle," he said. "You made it an extension of yourself." She looked at him quietly. Humble. No gloating. The men who had doubted her before lowered their heads. Pride replaced with respect. The target bore witness to a lesson larger than skill. Strength isn't about the size of the gun, or the power behind it, or even the legacy of those who doubted you. It's about composure, discipline, and mastering control under pressure. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the range, she lifted the rifle from the bipod and set it down gently. No celebration, no fanfare, just quiet mastery. The SEAL sniper nodded once, approvingly, and the onlookers understood. This wasn't just a record-breaking moment. It was a demonstration of what true respect, focus, and skill looked like, and it would be remembered by everyone who had ever doubted her. Because sometimes, a toy, in the right hands, can leave the most powerful men stunned. The line dispersed slowly. She remained standing behind the rifle, silhouette framed by the fading light. A lesson in patience, precision, and quiet dominance had been etched into the minds of all who watched. And for that day, at that range, she had rewritten the rules.